Hello, Mystifiers. Welcome to the very first episode of Mr. Mystifications podcast. Today, we will be talking about 5 Alabama urban legends and kind of their backstories. And again, I said we because I am not joined alone. I am joined by my good friend, Brad. Say hello, Brad.
Hey guys, how's it going? Ready to
Yeah,
get into it?
this sounds really familiar, doesn't it? That intro. All right. Well, yeah, I don't know. I was just saying, if you haven't seen my paranormal investigation videos, well, then you're missing out because it's a very similar intro to that. Hey guys, how's it going? But anyways,
That's
we are gonna get.
trademarked.
What was that?
I said that's trademarked. So it's copyrighted by me.
Oh wow! Instantly sued by Brad on the first episode of the podcast. Fantastic. Nice knowing you guys. All right, but the first story that we are going to get into is that of the Boyington Oak. The Boyington Oak is the name of a historic living oak tree located in Mobile, Alabama. In 1833, 19-year-old Connecticut native and printer by trade Charles R.S. Boynton arrived in Mobile. While looking for a place to stay, he found a room at the local boarding house and roomed with another man named Nathan Frost. Only months later, Frost was discovered stabbed to death in a nearby Church Street graveyard, and the last person to see this person was, of course, Boynton. And to make matters worse for Boynton, it was found out that Frost owed Boynton money, and a motive for murder was established. This led to Boynton getting arrested and put on trial for Frost's murder. From the very beginning, Boynton staunchly maintained his innocence. Despite this, he was convicted and sentenced to death by hanging. It is believed that only circumstantial evidence was ever actually offered, and that it was presented to an unqualified jury. On his day of his sentence, prior to his death, Boynton proclaimed that his innocence would be proven by an oak tree, which would grow out of his heart and on top of his grave. And he was executed on February 20th, 1835. His remains were buried in the same cemetery his roommate's body was discovered in, Church Street Graveyard. But eventually, in fact, an oak tree did actually grow in the location where he was buried. Later on, and unfortunately much too late for Boynton, 2 people confessed to the crime on their deathbeds. Some folks claimed to hear crying and whispering noises originating from the tree's vicinity, fueling beliefs that Boynton's ghost remains nearby, continuing to seek his vindication. All right, so that was the Boynton Oak kind of urban legend and story behind it. Let's get into it a little bit after hearing it. Did you get the general idea of what happened there, Brad, after hearing that story? Just want to verify you got a nice, clear understanding.
Yeah, I pretty much summed it up. Some dude moved to the area, had a roommate, ended up supposedly being framed for murder, and claimed that his innocence would be proven by an oak tree growing on the same place that he died. So yeah, pretty much
Let's get into
sums it
that
up.
urban legend a little bit. So the one creepy thing that makes it kind of like really creepy is that there was actually like an oak tree that grew out in that general vicinity. I mean, that is kind of creepy, not gonna lie, but I mean, I don't know. What do you think? It's really creepy, but I mean, somebody could probably plant a tree there.
Yeah, someone who knew him personally or something like that, maybe, or twist of fate, maybe the people that actually was responsible actually planted the oak tree there.
Just to prove that that they know that he's innocent, then kind of deal to say, yep, he is innocent. Because yeah, I mean, there was those 2 people that confessed to it on their deathbeds. But all right, we're gonna do this. What would you rate this on a scare factor from like 0 to 10? Like if you like this story, was it scary or not really to you? I mean, my personal opinion, I'll be real with you, maybe like a 1. The creepy thing would be maybe the tree, but everything else besides that, it's just kind of really sad that the guy didn't really have a fair trial and he got killed, but not like having enough evidence. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I would have to say that, would definitely agree with you. Like the story itself is definitely a 1 for scariness, but if we're going on like the the whole folklore of it, what people are saying. I mean, honestly, sitting by a giant oak tree in a graveyard, and you start hearing somebody crying or whispering noises, and you have no idea where it's coming from. That could scare the crap out of someone. But again, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard
story
to say
overall won.
because it's hard to say because like we've only done 2 like paranormal actual like investigations, and we've never heard anything outside of like a spirit box or EVP or anything like that. So to actually like hear it with your human ear, I think that would be kind of a different experience compared to like over a spirit box or something.
And plus, who's afraid of a tree?
Oh, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's a pretty big tree outside my house right now, and if that thing falls, I'd be pretty afraid of that dang thing. I'm not gonna lie. That tree'd be pretty scary.
That's a completely different circumstance. You wouldn't see it coming.
True, it'd be just game over. All right, but we're gonna get on to the next story. Brad, we'll go into the Huntsville Sally Carter one. I'll let you read this next story here.
Okay, so Huntsville Sally Carter. Sally Carter died on November 28th, 1837, less than 3 weeks before her 16th birthday. Sally Carter died at Cedarhurst, the plantation-style home built in the 1825 by some of the Carter's relatives. She had been visiting her sister at Cedarhurst when she died in an upstairs bedroom after a brief illness. A townhome community now sits on the site where Sally Carter died and was buried. Carter's former upstairs bedroom has been preserved. The plantation-style home is now a clubhouse. In December 1982, Carter's grave, along with the graves of her sister, Mary Ewing, and Ewing's 3 children, were excavated when the townhome development began. When the graves were moved, the family did not disclose the new location of Carter's grave. Carter's legend was so popular in the 60s and 70s that vandalism and pranks were common at the gravesite. Occasionally, the police or fire department was summoned. Vandals started fires in the garage of Cedarhurst. The first story of Carter's ghosts were told as early as 1919. One night, a 17-year-old boy from Donathan slept on a coast outside Carter's former upstairs bedroom. In the night, the boy dreamed of Carter as a thunderstorm passed through Huntsville. In a dream, Carter told the boy to prop up her tombstone, which had fallen during the thunderstorm. After the boy awoke the next morning, he walked to Carter's gravesite. His relatives laughed when he told them why he was going out there, but when he arrived, the tombstone had fallen. As legend goes, the boy returned to Donathan almost immediately, never to return to Huntsville.
From what I get at that last sentence there, this boy, did he disappear?
No, he didn't disappear. He just probably returned back to
Like his home?
Oh, it says right here, returned to Donathan. Like, yeah, that's where he went. He decided he was never going to go back to Huntsville because it scared the crap out of him because he had a premonition.
Yeah, I mean, now if I was in the place of that young boy, that would be scary. I mean, yeah, that would be pretty darn creepy. Like if something you had dreamed about, you went and it was actually true. Like I'd probably be really scary in my personal opinion.
Definitely be kind of freaky. I mean, it's not uncommon for to see something in your dream and it actually happen. Maybe more uncommon for a lot of people, but there is a lot of evidence that stuff like that does happen.
Prove it.
I'd have to get Google out and start getting case by case stories out. Come on now.
We're gonna get into the case by case now. That's it. No, but like I said, I mean, this story overall, once reading through it, I mean, I didn't give me the scares. I mean, I wasn't like, ugh, this is creepy. I didn't get anything like that. But I mean, in the case of the boy, like I said, yeah, that definitely probably be like a 4 on the scare meter for me. But just reading the story is probably like a 2. Not that scary.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. If I remember reading right, I believe the now clubhouse area of it, they actually do some tours there, and a lot of people claim that they get pushed by something or whatever when they do this tour, or they get an ominous feeling.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I will agree with you. I think it sounds a little bit more scary than our last story.
Yeah, of the tree.
Yo.
All right, we're gonna get into the third story. The story of a. God dang it! Sometimes you just mess it up, but whatever. So yeah, the next story that we're gonna go into is the curse of the river serpent. This is on the Alabama River along with the Tennessee River, so it's a mix of both. Farmers reported spotting giant serpents in the Tennessee River as far back as 1822. When Buck Sutton was fishing in Van's Hole, a branch of the river across the Tennessee line, he spotted an undaunting 25-foot long creature and told his friends the following, quote, "The thing was monstrous. It was the creature. I could see the thing as clear as day," unquote. Sutton panicked because everyone knew those who saw the serpent were cursed. As the legend foretold, Sutton died a few days after the sighting. Floyd chronicles others whose experience mirrored Sutton's. Billy Burns died in 1827 after seeing the serpent. Then Jim Wyndham in 1829 died as well after spotting the serpent. In 1877, reports appeared in the Gadsden Times of sightings of serpents in the Coosa River, a tributary of the Alabama River. A fisherman reported seeing a 20-foot-long creature with large fins slithering near the banks at Ball Play Creek. But then it just slipped beneath the surface and it was never spotted again. Then there wasn't much that I could really find on if anything actually happened to the person that spotted the serpent in the Coosa River. So unfortunately, we could not find much on that one. All right, Brad, let's get your thoughts on that very short urban legend.
Well, there's not a whole lot of sightings of it, but I mean, the folklore definitely probably has potential to be very scary. I mean, who wouldn't be scared of a giant river monster? There's
Not
always
I.
tales of, giant snakes and stuff like that. Who knows? You know, could be like crazy, like an anaconda or something. Highly unlikely, considering they're not around this area at all. But,
Do you know
stranger things have happened. I mean, just look at some of the sharks that go up into freshwater that people are still in denial about.
they don't go in the freshwaters?
Yeah, they do. There's some that'll go into freshwater. They'll stream up there.
You talking about the bull sharks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, I've heard stories of that. But yeah, no, I would definitely say like if I saw this creature and then like you knew because of a curse that you were gonna be dead, like yeah, that would be pretty darn scary. I'd probably put that at like I don't know, I'd probably be pretty like 9. I'd probably put down a scare meter of 9. That'd be really creepy to actually like see it and then you're like, oh well, I'm gonna die in a couple days. And I would like to say that you said there's probably no like snakes or anything that big in that area. Isn't there like I don't know? Who knows if any of the snakes from Florida that I don't think there was actually snakes in Florida in the 1800s were there like boa
Well,
constrictors.
I'm
I don't
sure
think
there
there.
was.
I don't think. I don't know. I don't think they'd be in the 1827s. Like I don't think there'd be boa constrictors there. That's a good Google question to ask. Like, were there snakes in Florida in the South in the 1800s? I highly doubt it. You're Googling it, aren't you?
I am. I want to know. I'm curious. I don't.
Brad is very curious, and he likes to know now if there were snakes in the 1800s in Florida or the South.
I don't know. That's gonna be something I'm really gonna have to dig. It's not gonna be a quick 5-minute thing. But I did find after just a short Google thing that in 1992, that pythons became an invasive species after a breeding facility was destroyed by a hurricane.
Oh, python. Oh yeah, there's pythons too. So who knows what that could be over in the Alabama
More
River?
likely, there's got to be rattlers.
You mean like rattlesnakes?
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, probably. I'm not very familiar with the southern snakes, though. I'm a northern boy, so I wouldn't really know too much about the snakes and everything that lives down in Alabama. But copperheads, gators that are huge, Who knows what they would have saw that's like that, But mysteries, that's why you got to love them sometimes. This next one's kind of short as well. The next story goes on about Hell's Gate Bridge. If you are from the Oxford, Alabama region, you may have heard of the Hell's Gate Bridge. As the story goes, sometime during the 1950s, a young couple's car drove off the bridge and plunged into the water below. And supposedly, if you stop on the bridge and turn off your lights, a member of the couple will enter your vehicle and leave a wet spot on the seat. This haunted bridge in Alabama Hell's Gate Bridge earned its name because many people believe that when you stop on the bridge and glance over your shoulder, the road behind you resembles the fiery gates of hell. And supposedly several locals have experienced this over the years. Due to the safety concerns, though, local officials are using cement blocks to block off Hell's Gate Bridge so people can't drive across it. However, this haunted bridge still receives visitors on foot, but because the bridge is old and falling apart, walking across it really isn't recommended. See, right here is kind of where I wish I had like an actual personal story on this, because there's only so much you can find on the Hell's Gate Bridge. I mean, if I was driving on there, but which they don't recommend anymore, and some person entered my car and then left a wet spot on it, that'd probably make me a little mad, but it would be creepy. Definitely creepy, because I mean, of course, they just disappear out of nowhere, and it's like, the hell?
As long as it's not a woman in white.
Not a woman in white, huh?
You don't get the reference. But
No.
anyways, so yeah, I don't know. Just the fact that, people think that, if you look over your shoulder, like you see into the gates of hell, like you can see what's in hell. That'd be creepy if that was like a real thing. It could be a real thing. Maybe people did see it. But if you don't see it with your own eyes, tough to say. But again, that would scare the living crap out of me.
If you just saw you're walking down the bridge and you just turn around, well, hello, Satan. No. Yeah, that would actually be pretty scary as well. But that's one of the things where, like, who knows how many people said they saw that? Like, it's kind of something you'd have to kind of experience yourself. All right, let's book it, Brad. Book the trip to Hell's Gate Bridge.
Sounds like a pleasant vacation.
Oh, yeah. Pull out our
Probably in the
trusty Danny
40s.
spirit box. But anyways, I mean, besides that, yeah, having somebody sit in your car, and I don't know, I would say probably, what would you rate this on a scare meter for you?
Well, I'm gonna have to give it two different ratings. One, if we just go with the whole thing of, an entity walks into the car, leaves a wet spot, probably still probably freak me out. I'd say about 4 or 5.
That's a good rating.
But if I can turn around and see the gates of hell, I'm gonna say that's 10. I mean, does it get any scarier than that? Because everything that is scary or to be scary
Is in hell.
is in hell.
Yeah, I mean, that would literally be an instant, I just crapped my pants moment. That would definitely be scary. I'd probably have to go home and change after that one. All right, but I think there's one more story that we got here, Brad, that we're gonna have you read and talk about a little bit.
So the last story is called Dead Children's Playground. When looking at this Huntsville Dead Children's Playground, it might look like just an ordinary playground. However, it is anything but that. People often say they see swings moving back and forth on their own, as well as orbs or spectral figures around this playground. The park is surrounded by limestone that has formed many caves in the area, thus giving the area a shadowed appearance. The playground's got its name by local teens, and the name stuck. According to the legend, many children who died in Huntsville during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic are buried in the Maple Hill Cemetery adjoining the playground. Some say that the spirit of these children come out after dark to run and play just as they have in life. Unfortunately, many people did die during the worldwide pandemic. This pandemic hit Huntsville particularly hard as hospital beds were filled and doctors were working long shifts in hopes of easing some of the patients' misery. Many patients were treated at home with large quarantine signs on the door. When people died, bodies were stacked on wagons and hauled to the morgue by horses. To try and prevent the disease, parents cautioned children to leave the windows closed. They even created a sing-song rhyme as a reminder that went like this. I had a bird. Its name was Enza. I opened the window. An influenza.
Okay, Brad, I was really hoping I would hear those vocals there and
Oh
hear you
no.
singing. I had a bird. Its name was Enza. I opened the window. An influenza. How was that?
I don't. I guess I don't get. The song doesn't rhyme very well. It just says Enza twice, and that's what rhymes.
Yeah. And influenza?
Yeah, I get the reference. It
Yeah.
just doesn't. The song doesn't resonate with me. All right.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think this song should resonate with anyone. I mean, it's about the plague and death. It's not a very good song to be like, oh, this really resonates with me.
Well, if you're gonna sing it, something has to spark the inner vocals.
Well, then again, I mean, my singing skills not very good. I only took 1 year of chorus.
So yeah, I was actually able to find a couple different things about this area that could, add to why people would say it's definitely a haunted area. So again, we'll start with the swings. You know, common thing people are going to say. The wind is definitely the prime source. But unless this park is actually in a valley, there's trees and limestone surrounding it. Very little wind is going to get through. So a little bit of history about it too is the playground was actually torn down to make room for the surrounding area, but the locals wanted it rebuilt. It was rebuilt in 2007. Now, when it comes to hauntings and weird occurrences, rule number one is if you disturb the area, it can have negative effects. Also, another creepy fact that just adds to it is in 1960s, there was supposedly a serial killer going around kidnapping children. It was never caught. A lot of evidence was that bodies of kids were found close to the park during this time. So, that's just a prime example of, maybe, the kids' spirits get trapped to that plane and don't move on. So there's your hauntings.
That would definitely lead to believing that. Yeah, this place probably has some hauntings. I mean, yeah, definitely if you're disturbing a place where like kids were buried at one point, and like yeah, that's just gonna lead to something happening like that. So
Just sounds like a poltergeist to me.
they need Jesus. Somebody call in Jesus. No, I won't get into that. I won't get into that. All right, but yeah, I mean, let's think about how scary that would be. I mean, that end part adding into like the 1960s that there was a serial killer there. Yeah, yeah. I mean that was never caught, so that's creepy in itself. That there was just a dude getting away killing kids. That's just messed up. I mean, now though he's probably dead at this point because of the 1960s,
More than likely.
quite a while ago. So you don't really have to worry about that anymore, but it's still pretty creepy. I mean, the hauntings, like seeing swings moving by themselves, like I would think, like I said, probably first thing like everybody else does is that, yeah, it's the wind probably moving it. But depending on how much that swing, if it's going back and forth real fast, like somebody's actually pumping and swinging it, that would be kind of creepy to see.
Yeah, that definitely, anything moving on its own, that can't be explained, is definitely ups the fear factor. I just there's not a whole lot of stories on it. I wish there was a lot more stories. I think this place has definite potential, especially if you were going to go investigate it.
Oh yeah, I definitely see that there is a lot of potential here for investigations. I mean, it's just like it was during a time like the pandemic just killing a lot of people, unfortunately. Like, and it probably has a lot of people dead because I mean, I think there were just like I said, people getting like carried on carts to get buried, like and just piled up like that. I don't know. And then you add the caves in this area too. That probably just gives another creepy factor into it as well.
Yeah, I'd definitely say. But if we're gonna stay kind of on point with our whole scare meter, the story itself, without the added extra knowledge, I would say maybe a 3 or 4. Definitely scarier than a tree.
Hey, you leave that tree alone, damn it. Yeah, no, I would say it's scarier than the tree, but it's not as scary as seeing the gates of hell. Definitely not as scary as seeing the gates of hell. So I would say middle ground 5 would probably be a good rating for that.
All right, I guess
All
that's
right.
fair.
But with that, guys, that was our last point of Alabama. So we do want to thank you for joining us on our very first episode of the podcast. And with this podcast, we eventually would like to start telling viewer stories and their kind of encounter stories. That's kind of our overall goal with this podcast. So if you have a story and you'd like to tell it to us, feel free to follow me on Facebook. The name on there is if you just search Mr. Mystification, you will find me. There's a big purple M. Or if you just want to send me an email at mrmystificationx@gmail.com, you can do that as well. Any story we get would be greatly appreciated because that would make it a lot more creepy with actual personal experience that somebody had with this. And not with that, let's talk about the name a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. What do you think, Brad? You think Mr. Mystification Podcast is a really great name for a podcast?
No, probably not. That's why we're going to come up with quite a few different names.
So yes, we are going to be working on trying to get a name change. So same thing, if you got any name changes you want to tell me, feel free to email it in, follow me on Facebook and message me on there. Be like, hey, I think this would be kind of a cool name that your podcast could have. We would send you a good old shout out on the podcast. Otherwise, we will be making a poll eventually on like Facebook, YouTube, anything like that, and just kind of seeing what comes up with the best name and gets the most votes. So with that, guys, we appreciate you coming by on our first episode here, and we will catch you over on the next episode.